He tied me up and threw me in a van, then pulled off the blindfold and got down on one knee with a ring. I said no and walked away, but instead of letting me go, he turned my life into a twisted obsession I couldn't escape. You ever have a moment where reality tilts so hard, you wonder if your brain just broke? That was me, hands tied, gagged, a bag over my head, shoved into the back of a moving SUV. I thought I was going to die. I was halfway through my run, same route I'd taken 100 times, earbuds in, music blasting, breathing steady. I remember the sun being high, barely a cloud in the sky. Normal, comforting. I even stopped for water at the usual bench near the dog park. That's when I noticed the SUV. At first, I didn't think anything of it. It was idling across the street. Could have been waiting on someone, maybe even lost. But when I turned the corner and it turned with me, a part of me, some primal, ancient part, knew something was wrong. I picked up my pace. The tires did too. By the time I reached the quieter stretch of the trail, I was running full out, my lungs burning. I yanked my phone from my armband, tried to text my sister. I only got out 2 words, "Help me," before the doors of the SUV flung open and men in masks rushed me. I screamed, fought, kicked. Bit one of them hard enough to draw blood, I think. But it didn't matter. There were 3 of them. One pinned my arms, another tied my wrists behind my back with zip ties. I was gagged and blindfolded within seconds. I remember the smell of their gloves, rubber and sweat, and how the ground dug into my knees before they dragged me into the van. I couldn't see, couldn't scream. My body felt like it wasn't mine. My thoughts spiraled. I'm being taken. I'm going to die. This is it. I won't see my family again. They tied my ankles. One of them muttered, "Just calm down. You're okay." Like I was some kind of scared pet. I wanted to tell them to burn in hell, but the gag just made everything come out as a panicked sob. I think I blacked out for part of the ride. Or maybe I dissociated. I just remember cold air hitting me again, then gravel under my feet. They carried me out. My body was shaking so violently that I could barely stand. And then, they took off the blindfold. The first thing I saw? Rose petals. String lights. Freaking balloons. "Will you marry me?" they spelled, floating on the wall behind a grinning Brandon, my boyfriend of 3 years, down on one knee holding a ring box. I thought I was hallucinating. He beamed at me like this was some kind of fairy tale. "Surprise," he said, like I'd just walked into my own birthday party and not been dragged from a moving van like a hostage. Behind him, the masked men were laughing. Actually laughing, high-fiving like it was all just some epic college prank. One of them shouted, "She looked like she was gonna pass out. Nailed it." My heart didn't slow. My hands were still trembling. My wrists stung from the zip ties. My knees were scraped and wet from when I peed myself back in the van, too scared to even realize it at the time. I didn't move. Brandon tilted his head. "Babe," he said, like I was the one being weird. "It's memorable, right? You always said you wanted something no one else would do." I could barely breathe. My throat was raw from screaming. What is this?" I asked. "It's a proposal," he said, like it should have been obvious. "I wanted it to be epic. We staged the whole kidnapping thing to get you here without ruining the surprise." My stomach turned. You kidnapped me." Brandon's smile faltered. "Not really. It was just pretend. You weren't ever in actual danger." My voice cracked. I thought I was going to die. One of his idiot friends chimed in. "Come on, you gotta admit, it was kinda badass. People are gonna talk about this for years." I stared at Brandon, really looked at him. This man who I thought I loved had orchestrated my worst nightmare, thought I'd be grateful, and was now confused why I wasn't leaping into his arms. "Take the ring, babe," he said, rising to his feet. "Let's just forget the scary part and celebrate." "Huh?" I took one step back, then another. Brandon moved toward me like this could still be salvaged. "I spent 2 months planning this. You're supposed to be happy." I laughed, one of those dry, hollow, bitter laughs. "You're insane." His face changed then, just for a second, from smiling idiot to something darker, like my rejection was short-circuiting him. But then it was gone, and he was back to playing the good boyfriend. "I just wanted to surprise you," he mumbled. "You traumatized me, Brandon." I looked around the room again, at the lights, the cake on the counter, the playlist he probably thought was romantic, all of it built on terror. I shook my head. No, I said. What? No, I will not marry you, and I want you to stay the hell away from me. I walked past him, past the stunned looks on his friends' faces, past the floral arch that someone clearly spent hours building, out the door, onto the street. I didn't have my phone, my wallet, my shoes, but I didn't care. A neighbor saw me sobbing barefoot on the sidewalk and called me a cab. I was crying like a maniac in the backseat of a yellow cab because my boyfriend thought terrorizing me would be a cute way to pop the question. I thought that would be the end of it. You'd think after being fake kidnapped and publicly humiliated, I'd at least get a few weeks of peace. But Brandon didn't take no for an answer. It started with texts, dozens of them. Please talk to me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. You overreacted. Like somehow I was the one being unreasonable for not wanting to marry the guy who terrorized me with a bag over my head. I blocked him. Every number, every social account. Then came the gifts. First, a bouquet at my door. White lilies, my favorite. No note, just a little tag that read, always and forever. Creepy as hell. The next day, chocolate-covered strawberries. Then a charm bracelet. Then a stuffed bear with a voice recording inside. It said, "You're the only one I want. Please come back to me." I threw it all in the trash, but it didn't stop. He started showing up, not in some cute romantic comedy, standing in the rain way. I mean, he'd literally find me. One morning I walked out of my yoga class, and there he was across the street, holding a sign that said, "Give me another chance." Another time I was at a cafe with a coworker, and he walked in, handed the barista a rose and said, "Tell her it's from her future husband." He stood outside my apartment one night playing our song from his phone on loop, holding a candle in each hand. Neighbors came out. Someone called the super. He left before the cops arrived. And still, somehow, people thought it was sweet. That's what kills me. The performances. Because to the world, it looked like love. Grand gestures, public devotion. But to me, it felt like being hunted by someone wearing a Valentine's mask. I started to question myself. Was I being dramatic? Harsh? Friends texted things like, "Maybe he just went too far because he loves you that much." Or, "At least he's not ghosting you like most guys would." Except for Jade. Jade never wavered. "You don't owe him a damn thing," she told me flat out. What he did wasn't romantic. It was trauma wrapped in ribbon. She was the only one who saw what I saw. The obsession, the control. It wasn't about getting me back. It was about winning, about not being told no. And then it escalated. One Thursday night, I got home from work and saw flashing lights outside my building. Music, a crowd. I stepped onto my balcony and saw a whole flash mob dancing in the courtyard. And at the center, Brandon, in a tuxedo, holding a giant sign that said, "You still have my heart." I was mortified. My landlord called me, furious. People were filming. I went back inside, shaking. That's when the first real panic attack hit. Tight chest, tingling hands, the whole thing. I sat on my bathroom floor for an hour until it passed. I called Jade. She stayed on the phone with me until I could breathe again. We decided I needed to disappear for a bit. Just get out of the city. I took a week off work and stayed with her in a cabin upstate. No social media, no notifications, just quiet. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could exhale. But of course, that didn't last, because Brandon wasn't done yet. I came back home the next week, turned my phone back on, and found 20 new voicemails. The last one? "I'm on the roof." I froze. It wasn't a metaphor. I looked out my window, and there he was, on top of the building across the street, floodlights behind him, arms outstretched like some twisted rom-com Jesus. A giant white banner flapped behind him in the wind. It said, "Her name is redacted, and I still love her. My name," in bold. He screamed it over and over. People were clapping, taking photos. Some were crying. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't love. It was performance art, staged heartbreak for likes and sympathy. My pain turned into a public sideshow. I lost it. I marched across the street, climbed the stairs 2 at a time, and pushed open the rooftop door. He turned, breathless. "You came." I walked up to him, heart hammering. "Brandon, this is not love." He blinked. "Of course it is. Look at everything I've done for you." "Exactly," I said. "Everything you've done. Not one of those things was for me. You scared me, violated my boundaries, humiliated me, and now you're trying to guilt me into coming back." He stepped closer. "I just want us to go back." "We're not going back," I snapped. "This isn't love. It's control dressed up in confetti." He didn't speak. The crowd below had gone quiet. We could hear the sirens approaching. Someone must have called them again. I didn't wait for him to say anything else. I walked away and I didn't look back. But that night, in my bed, phone off, heart still racing, I knew something had shifted. Brandon might finally stop. But what was left of me after all this? After the rooftop stunt, Brandon went silent. No more texts, no more songs outside my window, no more goddamn flash mobs. And for a while, it felt like waking up after a storm. The air was still heavy, but at least it was quiet. I started therapy. Jade found me a trauma-informed counselor who didn't flinch when I said things like, "I was fake kidnapped as a proposal." She just nodded, listened, asked, "How did that make you feel in your body?" And when I said, like I was going to die, she believed me. I walked a lot, through the city, through the park, around my apartment like it was some kind of spiritual loop. I painted too. I hadn't done that in years, not since college. It started with angry reds and blacks, chaos on canvas. But eventually something softer crept in. Blues, gold, a thread of light. It sounds cliche, but my art started reflecting my insides. Still broken in places, but no longer bleeding. For the first time in months, I could sleep without checking my locks 5 times. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. I let myself laugh again. Real laughter, the kind that fills your lungs and shakes your ribs. And that's when I met Eli. It was at a local art exhibit, one of those community gallery nights where everyone sips wine and pretends they know what brushwork means. I was standing in front of a painting that reminded me of my own work, fractured but beautiful. I said out loud to no one in particular, "It kind of looks like a nervous system unraveling." And this voice beside me goes, "Or maybe a nervous system healing." I turned and there he was, Eli, soft eyes, worn-in denim jacket, paint on his hands. The kind of calm presence that makes you realize how tense you've been for way too long. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. Art, grief, therapy. The conversation just flowed. No awkwardness, no hidden motives, no performance, just presence. He didn't ask for my number. But the next week I saw him again. Same gallery. This time he offered me a coffee and said, "I think I owe you a second theory about nervous systems." That's how it started. Slow, no pressure, no expectations. He never touched me without asking, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. He was the first person in a long time who saw me and didn't want to fix me, own me, or show me off. We'd paint together sometimes, sit in silence other times. He'd cook these oddly specific comfort meals, like grilled cheese with jalapenos and tomato soup from scratch. Said it was his mom's recipe. I didn't even know my body could feel that safe sitting beside someone anymore. And slowly, we got close. Not the head rush kind of close, the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. It scared me, I won't lie. I'd gone from chaos to quiet, from being hunted to being held, and just as I was starting to trust that maybe, this could be something real, Brandon texted, 3 words, "Can we talk?" Then, "I need to see you." I stared at the screen like it was glowing hot in my hand. My stomach flipped. Not from love, not from longing, from fear. And I hated that even after all this time, even after therapy, painting, Eli. Brandon still had that kind of power over my nervous system. I showed the message to Eli. He read it, then looked at me carefully. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to ignore it. Part of me wants to scream. And part of me, you want closure." I nodded. Eli didn't try to convince me either way. He just said, "If you meet him, you don't have to go alone. I can be nearby, or wait for you after." That's when I knew. He was different. So I replied to Brandon. 1 word, "Okay." And I picked the place. A quiet cafe in broad daylight. Neutral, public, and safe. But I still didn't know what I was walking into. Was he going to beg again? Apologize and explode? Part of me wanted to hear it. Part of me didn't care anymore. But I went, because I needed to look him in the face one last time and say out loud, "You don't get to own my story anymore." What I didn't expect was what happened next. The cafe was almost too quiet. You know that kind of silence where every clink of a spoon or sip of coffee feels loud enough to echo? That's how it was. Just me at a table by the window, hands clenched around a mug I hadn't touched. Brandon was late. Part of me hoped he wouldn't show, that he'd finally grown bored of the chase. But then the bell above the door rang, and there he was. Same tousled hair, same crooked smile, but something about him looked different, older, smaller maybe. He walked over without the usual bravado. No flowers, no note, no grand gestures. Just Brandon. "I didn't think you'd come," he said quietly. I didn't respond, just looked at him, waiting. He sat down across from me, hands in his lap, eyes flickering everywhere but mine. And for a few beats, we just sat like that, in awkward, thick silence. Then finally he spoke. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything, for scaring you, for not listening, for making you feel unsafe, unloved." His voice cracked on that last word. "I thought I was doing something big," he went on, "something unforgettable, but all I did was hurt you. And when you walked away, I didn't know how to handle it. I couldn't stand the silence, so I filled it with noise." He paused, looked up at me. "I've been in therapy," he added, "since the rooftop. I needed someone to help me understand how badly I messed up, how I turned love into control. That's what it was. I see that now." I nodded. "I don't expect anything," he said quickly. "I'm not here to get you back. I needed you to hear it from me. Not a voicemail, not a stunt, just this." For a moment, I didn't know what to say, because some part of me had spent so long bracing for chaos again. That calm felt foreign, but I believed him. Not in a let's fix it way, just in a maybe you finally get it way. "Thank you," I said, voice steady. "I appreciate the apology, I do." He nodded, looked relieved. "But that chapter of my life is closed," I added. "I've rebuilt a lot of myself since then, and I can't go back, not even as friends. I hope you continue healing, truly, but we're done." He nodded again, slower this time, and there was no begging, no argument, just acceptance. We paid our checks, we walked out together, and when he turned left and I turned right, I didn't look back. I felt light, like I'd been carrying a weight on my chest for months without realizing how heavy it had gotten. That night, I went back to Eli's apartment. He didn't ask how it went, just opened the door, pulled me into a hug and said, "You okay?" I nodded into his shoulder. Better than okay. And I meant it. Because with Eli, there were no costumes, no games, no dramatic performances. Just two people, showing up honestly, day after day. We painted together in the mornings, took slow walks, laughed until our faces hurt, and when I had nightmares, he didn't try to fix me. He just stayed. As the seasons shifted, so did I. From fear to courage, from wreckage to rebuilding, from victim to survivor. Now when I paint, I still use red sometimes, but not just for pain, for strength, for fire, for the part of me that fought back. I look in the mirror and I see her now, the woman who stood in front of the man who broke her and didn't flinch. I survived love dressed in confetti and cruelty, and in its place I found something softer, something real, something that feels like peace. If you made it this far, thanks for riding with me. If you love real, messy, emotional stories like this, go ahead and hit subscribe. There's always another confession waiting in the backseat.